AML and anti-fraud for crypto and gaming. Best practices.
Let's make this quick because I know everybody wants to go. So, and lucky, a whole seat just for yourself, eh? A whole seat for yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for staying. My name is Julian Goffin. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Lunify, which is an EMI here in Malta. I've got a great panel here today, and we're going to discuss one of probably the most boring topics, and we're going to try and make it a little bit more fun. So we're discussing AML and anti-fraud for the crypto and the gaming industry. And as we all know, the crypto and the gaming industry continues to grow at incredible speed. But with growth comes greater responsibility, as we all know, and greater risk. Fraudsters are becoming more sophisticated, and regulators are tightening their focus. The platforms must strike a very delicate balance between compliance, between security, and seamless user experience. Today we're going to explore what the latest compliance measures are, cutting-edge tools, and industry's best practices. I'm very pleased to be joined by these three highly respected people. I'll say that with tongue-in-cheek, shall I? And I'd like them to introduce yourself. Christian, would you like to introduce yourself and what you're doing?
So I'm Chris Zammit. I'm a senior consultant with Bridge Advice, mainly focused on financial crime. Previously, I had some experience with the AML regulator in Malta, with the FIU, and previously I did some years in the banking industry as well. So I juggled a bit between...
Juggle around a bit, huh?
Yeah.
Regulator to banking, so you're from the dark side to the light side, etc. Excellent. Ambrose, tell us what you've done.
Hi,
or not, but keep it short, yeah?
My name is Ambrose. I just had a very long walk here. Before that, I'm like a recovering banker. Spent several years in the UAE, and I currently occupy the position of a MLRO and compliance officer with a variety of regulated entities, including payments and crypto companies and gaming. And the subject is very close to my heart. I believe there are several ways we can improve it, and we can actually use it as a driver rather than like an obstacle, which is what everyone thinks it is.
Thank you very much. And Simon, last but not least.
I'm Simon Houlswell. I'm the Senior Fraud Specialist Manager at Entrust, formerly on Fido. So what I do is I work in, we work in identity and KYC and account opening and onboarding. So it's doing all of that remote stuff to try and properly establish who someone is from the very outset, so that you've got a good foundation to build that trust from. And I think that's kind of, in a sense, yes, I agree sometimes the compliance and the AML can seem very unglamorous, but certainly what I've started to see recently is really addressing specific scenarios that actually makes it a much more interesting space to be working in.
I think, though, that everybody, especially around that area, that's the biggest headache that everybody seems to have, is that onboarding and the seamlessness of trying to get the onboarding. And I know that you guys try and work very hard at making that as seamless as possible. So thank you guys for the introductions. Now we're going to dive into some questions here around payment verification, around transaction monitoring, fraud detection tools, future of the AML in crypto and gaming, and how we can make it possibly easier. And of course, we're going to leave some time for insights for what the companies should be doing, and what you guys think is the next big thing, let's say, to come out and to sort of help the industry. And we'll get started with Ambrose, if it's okay to come to you first. And what do you see as the sort of most pressing AML risks? So as an MLRO of crypto exchanges, of payment institutions, gaming companies as well, what do you see as the most pressing AML risks for platforms that you're working with at the moment? And how do you stay ahead of the regulatory expectations?
I mean, more than regulatory expectations, I would say there are developments that come at a tangent, so there are developments in, for example, stablecoin technology, which have given the good players another tool, but they've really made the life of the bad actors somewhat easier. We are seeing a lot of people, for example, trying to use genuine players as mules. just what we used to call structuring back in the day. Very small amounts, hundreds of accounts opened from countries where you've never had a customer, you know. And in fact, you know, to avoid being used for structuring, that is probably my number one suggestion. If a new country pops up, do look into it, you know, because number one, you need to know if you're licensed for that country. You know, I mean, if you're not, it might be something for the business to consider. But if you've never had business from a certain country and all of a sudden, I don't know, 300 accounts from Malawi register, you know, I mean, in Malawi, crypto is illegal. So chances are you're being used. Then it's very, very problematic and time-consuming to get to the bottom of it, because, for example, we mentioned identification and onboarding. You go through SumSub, you go through Verif, you go through all kinds of solutions. Unless you actually listen to what's happening in the background of the video, that's where you will hear a person coach these people. Genuine people with real documents, authentic documents. Probably they don't even know they're being used, you know? And they get like 10 euros out of it.
Yeah.
But 500 euros times 100 users starts adding up. Another thing which I think we are seeing, you know, like is different blockchains becoming extremely important and popular. Why, for example, before Ton was something that, you know, gaming people were kind of involved with because you had a number of casinos with their mini apps. Now Telegram, the Ton network, is extremely widespread. Thankfully, the explorers and the blockchain technologies are starting to catch up with that, because what used to be fringe, in a matter of months, becomes mainstream. And that's a big challenge for us.
But when it becomes mainstream, you find that that's when the bad actors start coming into it as well, because once you see something that's been used for a period of time, and then you see the growth, and then you see more and more people using it, then the bad actors think, well, actually, this is where we need to hit. And this is where we can get in, because now it's being saturated and they're not going to notice us going in.
Exactly.
So, thank you. Thanks for that. One thing I'd like to ask as well, so obviously you have the issue around this, but what about the governance side? Because you mentioned there about 300 new clients going on board from a certain jurisdiction. Now, governance side, you know, if you've got the wrong type of governance within the organization, then all they're doing is rubbing their hands together. Look, we've got a new area, we're earning shitloads of money from this as well. Like, wow, great.
Precisely, Julian. You hit the nail on its head. And without good governance of the AML program, the fraud program, I would say even to a degree the CRM program, you know, certain things will not come to the attention of the right people. I have been involved in a case where this thing actually happened. You know, we present certain plans to the regulator, and we say, you know, the head of fraud is X. But then in reality, fraud decisions are taken by the owner. Now, there's nothing wrong in having the owner involved in the business, but the head of fraud is head of fraud for a reason. He's trained, he's independent of the business, and at the end of the day, the head of fraud is going to take decisions that benefit the business and the preservation of the license. We should not allow the commercial interests of the business to get in the way. Neither should we ignore them, mind you, you know? I mean, if we have 300 new accounts, there are 300 new accounts until proven otherwise.
Yeah, it's getting the balance, isn't it? It's actually understanding the balance between you putting your trust in your team on fraud, on AML, on compliance as a whole, and allowing that compliance to be the ones that run. But then the compliance side also needs to understand that a business needs to run. I think that the main adage is essentially the fact that you have no risk if you don't have any clients. So
yeah, but I think Ambrose's point earlier was you see the spike, right? So assuming that the business is good is one thing, but not investigating it is something different. So this is why you have your compliance teams and your fraud teams keeping an eye out for that exact problem and then investigating it thoroughly. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Right? That's how you stay clean and compliant, is doing your due diligence.
Remember, I'm on the side of I own the business, yes. So I'm going to be on the side of I want to earn some money here. So, but no, I agree completely. And unless that governance is in place, and you remove yourself, like I remove myself away from the fact that I'm not in an onboarding committee, I'm not in the audit committee, because that essentially puts the right governance in place, allows you to step back, But your teams that you have working for you also have to understand that there is a need for commercialization here. There's a need to keep the business going. And it's getting, as you said, that balance, understanding where this problem is.
Yeah, and I think there can be a tendency and a danger to just look at a lot of the regulations that are put in place and treat them as a tick box exercise. We have to do X for us to continue. If you don't fully appreciate the spirit of what those compliance rules have been brought in to deal with, then you're always going to be chasing your tail. That means in 12 months' time, when a new regulation comes out, you have to rebuild or restructure. Whereas if you start to understand what they're trying to deal with in the first place, that gives you the ability to kind of prepare for what's coming, rather than have to restructure and rebuild and tick a whole new load of boxes.
Absolutely, I'm with you guys 100% as well. Chris, have you got anything to throw into this one as well? Because we're getting a little debate going now. This is good. See, I told you it was worth staying till the end.
I used to work at the regulator, so...
Okay, that's enough. Fine, thank you. We'll move on.
No, but even regulation itself is in favor of this approach that we're discussing here. Because even the regulation states that compliance people and the MLRO need to be involved with the board, understand where the company is going, know their risk appetite, so that then can manage their teams accordingly to where the business is going. So even from a regulatory point of view, the legislation guides us to go towards that direction. It's a matter of how the board is on board with involving compliance people and setting the direction and knowing where the company needs to go. I think that is the essential points to understand within our internal processes, because once we get that right, then it's a matter of growing the business, being in line with your regulatory obligations, and I think things will work out well, even if there's rapid growth within the company.
I would love to have like this full of CEOs at the moment on these discussions. It would be very interesting. Chris, I'm going to stay with you at the moment. So from a consulting perspective, and staying on the compliance issue as well, what would you say are the non-negotiable compliance measures that every crypto company, gaming company, finance company should have or must have in place today?
So I think essentially in my opinion, it's transaction monitoring. I think you can have the best onboarding process, the best systems to onboard clients, but then ultimately it rests with how you monitor transactions. And knowing how things work, there's loads of transactions going on a daily basis, so I think transaction monitoring is essential. It's not just about the systems you have in place, it's how they can be customized to your needs, because you can buy an off-the-shelf system, which is the highest end system that there's on the market, but then when it comes to fitting that software to your business model, it's a struggle. So I think there's a lot of work to be done there in getting the system right. And then obviously you need to have the right people to handle the day-to-day alerts and discounting those alerts. Another important point, in my opinion, and I think Ambrose will agree with me, is having knowledgeable MLROs and compliance people in filling those places. I think they're key players in the whole system. So unfortunately, we're seeing locally not a large pool of compliance persons or MLROs that we can consider decent to fulfill those positions. But I think it's essential having the right person in that position, because ultimately they're decision takers, and not taking decisions or taking the wrong decision can lead to serious repercussions, both from an enforcement point of view and even from a reputability point of view. So I think those are the main 2 points that companies need to look for. So it's the right systems, especially for transaction monitoring, and having the right people in place.
Thank you. And I think when it comes to transaction monitoring as well, it's about, again, as you say, you can get the tools to help, you can get the people involved as well, but unless you have the correct rules set up, you could either over-complicate things and essentially have 90% of your transactions being polled or flagged, or you can undercomplicate things where you have 1% or 2% being flagged. So you need to get that balance. Again, you need to get those rules correct, and those rules need to be put into place. You mention about resources as well. Now, we all know that Malta, when you look at the gaming industry, when you look at the payments industry, when you look at the crypto industry, it's very incestuous when it comes to people. So you'll have somebody with one company 1 month, and then 6 months down the line, they're with somebody else. Now, this is probably due to lack of resources in Malta, and I think in the industry as a whole, there's a lot of companies out there now that it's difficult to get the right people into place. Do you often see operators, again, in all the type of industries, struggle with costs and struggle with resources? Because every tool comes with a cost. Every staffing comes with a cost. And essentially, what they're doing is, yeah, that payment's right. No, that payment's not right. Yeah, that payment's right. So, you know, it's a lot of money to pay out and a lot of people to bring in place.
Yes, I think it's an issue, and it's common to see, even from our perspective, from a licensing point of view, when we're helping clients to get a license. It's a struggle, the cost, and even to find the people. But our advice is always that they need to structure their policies and procedures as detailed as possible due to this turnover. Because if you have a good procedure in place, a documented procedure in place, then if there's a change in personnel or change in staff, at least you have some sort of guidance that newcomers can follow. So us as advisors, we place a lot of importance on procedures. Some people see it as just a tick box approach to fulfill the regulator's requirements, but in reality, it can help a lot with these situations. When it comes to costs in relation to software, it's true, these are costly investments, but I think nowadays there's a lot of competition in the market, and that is helping a bit the cost even to go down. So there are a lot of different options, and then it's a matter of choosing the right tools for your business model. So in a nutshell, I think there's some sort of mitigant to cater for this issue, which is evident in the market.
Yeah, I think that you have to, when you're starting these enterprises and moving forward these enterprises, you need to bring in to your forecast, let's say, these cost implications from the very beginning. You need to know that without these tools that it's not going to happen. And Simon, we touched on about the bad actors and fraud and things like that as well. Fraud in gaming and payments is getting so sophisticated. New things come out in the payments industry, and I think, as everybody knows, if it's man-made, it can be man-broken as well. So, you know, there's nothing that is going to be sort of bulletproof, let's say, for these bad actors. What new fraud vectors or scams, let's say, are you actually seeing coming more often now, and how are the platforms actually being able to fight back?
Yeah, and I think you raise a really good point. Fraud is always going to happen, right? And I think if you work in and around fraud, you understand that, you accept it, you don't like it, and your aim is always to get that number, that percentage as small as possible. But the only way you're going to end up with 0% fraud is if you onboard no customers. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah. But with regards to growing trends, I mean, we've seen a lot happen over the last couple of years. So in Trust, we put out our annual identity report every year, and we go through our own figures and pick out any of the trends. And between 22 and 23, we saw a 3,000% increase in the number of deepfake attacks. So we went from like hundreds to tens of thousands in 1 year. Now, that has just become part of the background now. That is here to stay. People using deepfakes to commit biometric fraud is just a part of the landscape.
So what tools are there that are in place? Because I've seen from what we're doing, you know, we've looked at lots of different companies and things like that, and like with deepfake, as you said, it's something that AI has certainly helped the bad actors with. But there are tools out there that can actually detect these things. They can detect where the light is coming from, because they can detect the different texture on the skin. They can the different color based on where the light is, etc.
Yeah.
So what tools have you seen out there that actually help? And you can name drop here, so it's okay. Help these guys to work.
Well, we create our own proprietary software.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. No, so it's all about how you train your models, right? So your model is only as good as what you train it on. AI doesn't just miraculously make these leaps. You have to feed it the right data. It's like training anything. So if you see a lot of fraud, you have a lot of material to train it on. What my team specializes in is, rather than waiting for fraud to happen or waiting to accrue enough numbers or examples of fraud to train the model effectively, we actually start to synthesize the fraud as quickly as possible. So we'll get a couple of missed cases or a couple of new attack vectors where they've tweaked the model they've used to create the deepfake, or they've changed the app that they're using to automate the selfie that the attack's been based on. We'll pick out those examples, and rather than wait for more examples to train our model with, we'll create similar examples synthetically that have the same characteristics, then use that to retrain the model with the right kind of volume of data, so that you cut down that learning curve, because you're just spamming it or dog fooding it with the right quantity.
Super. So any of you guys have any fraud, it's probably him that's doing it, because he knows how to fix it. So he's
Do come to our stand. We'll deepfake all of you. It's fine.
Super. Ambrose, I'm going to come back to you because I like you.
Mutual.
VOP. Now, VOP essentially, which is the verification of payees, that's being brought in now by October. That has to be in, and it's realistically it's on payment rails, and it's on the SEPA Instant and things like this as well. Do you see the verification of payees coming into gaming, crypto, and things like that? Wouldn't it be a more beneficial tool for these industries as well as just the payments industry to actually do?
I would say, Julian, in crypto we have our own equivalent. I feel that the travel rule is headed that way, whereby we're actually verifying the payee and more. Some would argue we're doing way more, possibly too much. The issues with the travel rule is that the interoperability of it leaves a lot to be desired. You have certain regions doing it one way, certain regions doing it another way, certain regions not doing it at all. United States, for example, can't even decide with some degree of certainty if DEXs are included. So whereas in payments, verification of payee is going to be incredibly useful, because even if you're a gaming operator, for example, your payment providers are suddenly part of your AML program. They're part of your and they should already be. Don't get me wrong, And this is one mistake we all do. We don't talk to each other. I attend a lot of these events, and everyone's like,
Malta being a prime example of not talking to each other.
No one does. There's no official channel, granted, but there's unofficial channels, right? I remember when I had X hundred people from Latvia, for example, from Lithuania, I called people, are you getting the same thing? And everyone was getting the same thing. So, and then people start quoting GDPR and I don't know what. Anyway, let's not get there. So in crypto, you have the equivalent of verification in travel rule. How beneficial is it, though? Because what do we do with the travel rule information? We send it to the other CASP. Now, it may or may not be processed. I've done my bit kind of thing. And the regulators, unfortunately, are encouraging that approach, because really and truly, I would say, it's better if we do less, but everybody does it. And everybody agrees to do it simultaneously. If it takes us another 5 years, let it take another 5 years. Because right now, it's absolute nonsense. We have yet another nail in Europe's coffin, where we're really anal about the travel rule, where no one else is.
I think, yeah, I agree with you. And I think with VOP, it's essentially now at least bringing the European Union together on a shared basis of, this is the account, this is the person thing. But from what I've seen on it as well, that's a tick box whether you share that information. So it's not, it's designed initially for the client to see that they're sending it to the right person. However, if you as a financial institution don't send that information, then it's not being shared. And how do you know that it's actually going to be the right thing?
Purpose.
Again, this is going back to your learning, Dick. By sharing that information, you're growing the database and you're growing the actual knowledge and the anti-fraud side of it. So realistically, it should not be a tick box. It should be a mandatory send of thing. But then, as you say, people cry GDPR and all of that as well. So we've only got a few minutes left. Wow, that's gone quick. It's because we've got such a great panel. That's what it is. User trust is everything in crypto and gaming and finance. This is to all of you. Christian, I'll take you on this one first. What practical steps can companies take to protect funds and reassure players or investors that their money is safe? Now, this is quite interesting, actually, because the banks have the bank guarantee scheme, and the EMIs don't. They have safeguarding. But is it better to put your money with the EMI when you can have it all back if the EMI goes bust, or is it better to just get 100 grand back from a bank?
It depends from where you see it, I think. But I think safeguarding of client funds is important. So I think partnering up with the right partners, it's a show of confidence, even from a customer experience point of view. And then obviously there's the transparency with your clients when it comes to certain questions that you ask and certain processes that the client is involved in. It shows an element of safety to them. And ultimately it's a matter of staying outside the regulators' radar, because obviously having a fine does not help with customer trust. So that's why AML compliance is important, Julian.
I think that's one thing that the regulator is really pushing on at the moment on the safeguarding, and I think it's down to the banks themselves as well, or the EMIs or the fintechs or whichever themselves, to make sure, as you say, they partner with the right bank. You know, you partner with a tier 1 bank, or you partner with the, I don't know, Bank of Nairobi or something. You know, so guys, very, very quickly, and I know I've got a little bit more time because we're the last ones. So extremely quickly, looking ahead, what is one future trend in AML or anti-fraud that everyone should be preparing themselves for or looking for, or what would actually help that isn't there now?
I think the one thing that you have to be prepared for is that things aren't going to get any looser. All of these regulations are only going to get stricter. We're not seeing that things are going backwards and it's becoming easier and there's becoming less checks. We're seeing things become more regulated. So if you're not building some kind of solution or some kind of plan for the fact that things are going to get more stringent, then you're just going to end up costing yourself a lot more money in the long run. So try and come up with something that's flexible, forward-thinking, and prepared for change.
Future-proof.
To a certain extent.
To a certain extent.
Has to be. But just the fact that knowing it is going to get tighter, it's not going to get easier.
Yeah. Ambrose?
Look, in 10 seconds, if I could give one tip to everyone.
Don't worry about 10 seconds. It's fine. I've just had the nod. It's okay.
I would strongly suggest to everyone, myself included, talk to people. Talk to your peers, talk to other jurisdictions, talk to other regulators, because it's humanly impossible to know everything everywhere. And these are challenges that we operate in a pan-European market, right? It's increasingly common, for example, for Germany to gold plate a certain regulation. Denmark gold plates another one. In gaming, it's the same. People get very protective. So you might actually be following European legislation to the letter, but fall foul of certain provisions that only apply to a different market. Now, I tend to join as many bodies as I can. I'm a busybody, maybe. I don't keep up with all of them, but that's where you really hear about the interesting stuff. You know, I mean, join the groups on LinkedIn. Join your national bodies. You know, there's ACFE, there's ACAMS. ACAMS need to reduce their prices a bit, but they're good people. You know, I mean, jokes apart, talking to your peers is priceless. I think I have benefited much more from talking to my colleagues than from my studying, for example.
Super. Christian?
So I think we need to be proactive. We know that regulations are many times reactive to certain threats. So a suggestion would be to be proactive as much as possible, and to include compliance within the product design. So it's not design the product and then we see what compliance issues we might face and cater for them afterwards, but with the product design, we'll try to figure out what compliance things we need to have in place to make sure that once it's live, it's up and running and you have no issues. I think those are the main takeaways on what needs to be done.
Thank you. Thank you. So guys, we've taken away from this that we need to be forward-thinking, we need to be future-proof, we need to ensure that, or we need to know that the bad actors are here to stay, and that we need to be busybodies, as Ambrose puts. Guys, would you like to put your hands together, please, for this wonderful panel? And that's it for the day, I believe. Excellent.
Thank you, gentlemen. By the way, just learned today that the UAE has been removed from the European Union's high-risk money laundering list. So we will see you in Dubai next year in February at Sigma IBC Eurasia. OK, very good. Thank you so much. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Wow, what a day. Day one comes to an end at Sigma IBC conference. We still have networking events to attend tonight, so make sure to connect with people, make new friends, make new business connections tonight, and make sure to be here tomorrow morning. We start the stage again tomorrow. We're going to talk about cybersecurity, gaming, mental health, and of course, one of the most exciting parts, we will have a lot of investors on this stage, and also the AIBC Startup Pitch competition. I wish you all a wonderful night. I'm Olga Yaroshevsky, a Managing Director for Sigma IBC. For any questions you may have regarding tech and gaming, you may address me. I will see you tomorrow. Thank you.